I am saving up to buy a really good one.
Baby, from the start you've been my day one. Even though we fight, but we still make up.
Baby, the love that I feel for you is special. I know I cannot say, but you know how I feel, girl. I let my actions speak.
So hi guys, and welcome back to yet another video. So today, as I said, summer. Okay, so today, as I said, we're going to be doing a series of interviews talking about leadership and politics. So we did talk a little bit about politics in the last video. So in this video, I want us to talk about youth leadership. So I have Sunniva here with me from Sai. So I'll allow her to say something.
Yes, my name is Sunniva. I'm the president of SAI, how would I say that in English again? I've said it in Norwegian 3 times today. The Students and Academics International Assistance Fund, a Norwegian solidarity organization. Yes, I'm 25 years old, which I think still makes me youth.
Yes, you most definitely are you. So before we get started, I have the series of questions I sent you. And I think it starts with an icebreaker, right?
Yes.
The 2 truths and a lie. So you say 2 truths and a lie, then I guess which is which.
Yes. So, A, I was born with an extra finger. B, I have an orange belt in judo. And C, I have a secret fascination for clouds.
The extra finger is true because I've heard that story.
Aww.
The other 2 though. I would go with the clouds being true.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, I have no competencies in any sport whatsoever.
Yeah. It seems like I know you a little bit.
Yeah, that one is quite easy to grasp.
Okay, so let's get into it. Give us an overview perspective of what it is like to be a youth leader in Norway. Like, what is the youth leadership like?
It's quite nice because we have, like, in Norway we have a very big civil society, and it's all sorts of organizations. It's not only like political organizations. You have everything from sort of sports to culture to faith organizations and political organizations. All are sort of organized, very well organized, and there's sort of the whole organizational part is very important in all senses. And that means that in most of these cases you also have quite good sort of youth bodies or specific youth organizations. So that's a nice thing. There are very many youth leaders because you have a lot of different positions and a very big diversity in the types of organizations. So that's nice. And then I think there's also quite a space for youth leaders, and that's growing, I feel. We also are very lucky to be well organized as youth organizations sort of together. We have a very good umbrella organization that does a lot of important advocacy work for youth influence in, for example, politics, but also in other spheres of society. So I think it's nice, and it's very sort of collegial. It's very like you know other youth leaders, and you meet each other, and you have this sort of sphere of many youth leaders sort of pulling in the same direction and having each other's backs when you need it. So yeah, I think it's quite good. I mean, there are loads of things that can improve, of course. Yeah. But it's quite nice.
There's enough space.
Not enough. There's never enough space. I mean, there could be enough, but no, we're far from having enough space. But we have kind of our own space that's working, and then we're also more and more sort of getting into that adult space and receiving also sort of formal structures for having and taking that space. So yeah, I think it's improving, but I mean, there's still a way to go for youth leaders to be taken as seriously as they should.
Which is true. So let's talk about your journey. Where did you start from, and what have you done so far?
That's a difficult question. I've done a lot of different things. So I think I've always been very sort of engaged and concerned about the world around me. I mean, even from like kindergarten years, I was in a very diverse kindergarten, a Catholic kindergarten, with loads of people from different countries, which wasn't really the norm where I grew up. I grew up in a quite small town in the south of Norway. And then I've been engaged in, I started actually in the school band. That's sort of where that's what I did first. I played in the school band. And then I was engaged in Operation Days Work, which is the Norwegian solidarity organization for sort of pupils. And then my real sort of activism started when I became a member of the Labour Youth, which was back in 2009.
Which is a political party.
Yes, a political party, the Labour Party. So it's a bit more leftist than the Labour Party of Norway as well. So that started my political engagement. It wasn't very active where I grew up until 2011. So I wasn't really that much of an activist before the beginning of 2011. That was sort of, I was really sort of fired up by also the Arab Spring and that whole sort of mobilization of youth, and I think that sort of spurred what I've done afterwards. And yeah, and then from there it's been international relations at the university. It's been a lot of Psy activism, and also I spent I spent quite a long time also in the Labour Youth, and I did those two also in parallel for a while, and then I was active in my study group, and I've also worked in a bookstore, which I liked very much. Not much of an activist thing to do, but I really loved it. And yeah, I think that's not many organizations for me, but I've spent quite a lot of time in them.
And in this, I am going to assume, since you're the president of Psy now, you've been in the leadership in your engagement.
Yeah, yes and no. Yes, a lot. I became a regional president in the Labour Youth when I was 17, which wasn't the best idea. I realized. I think it was the only possibility at the time. They were lacking people who were willing to take on responsibility, and I thought, yes, that's something I haven't done before. I really want to get engaged. That'll be fine. That was a very big job. It entailed a lot of budget responsibility. It entailed a lot of political responsibility, a lot of responsibility for loads of volunteers, and also an employee. So that was a massive task when I was 17. And actually from then, I tried to sort of, because I went from being a local treasurer to being regional president in 4 months' time. Wow. And then what I decided is that next time I'm going to join an organization, I'm going to do it from the bottom, and I'm going to take my time. So I've been in Psy for many years, and I've done everything from sort of secretary, vice president in local chapter, information committee, then vice president, and now president. Okay. Taking the slow run, and it's been really nice. I think there's a lot. You gain a lot from actually going from the bottom to the top, because you actually understand the whole organization you're in. So I tried to do that this time, and yeah. So no, I don't need to be in leadership, but I do like it. Yes,
which is good. What's been the lowest point through the journey up to this point we are now?
I think there's one sort of general point, and then there's I mean, for many, of course, in Norway, the lowest point was the 22nd of July 2011, and for me that was very tough, because I was supposed to be there. I had plans to go, and it was going to be my first ever summer camp, my actual way into the Labour Youth, and I was really going to sort of just, finally take the step and become active. But then someone moved my band camp, because there were too few people who were interested in going to band camp, so that was moved to the same week, and then I was like, well, I mean, I've paid for the band camp, I have a friend going there, so I went to the band camp instead. So I remember when the attacks happened, I didn't know anyone there at the time, because I hadn't really joined, but I had this very sort of strong feeling of the fact that I should have been there. It could have been me, and it felt also at the time very unfair that it was someone else. So I think that was definitely a low point, and then there was a lot of low points, of course, by being a 17-year-old regional president. It was a bit tough. I stressed a lot, and also caused myself to develop migraines.
Oh no!
So that's one thing I'm struggling with. So actually, it's you have to also relax when you're a youth leader. It doesn't really help you or anything if you stress too much, because then you get migraines. which is I think the youth answer to like Ulsters or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's also a personal low point. It wasn't very wise.
For all those who don't know what she's talking about, I did a video when I visited the Utoya Island, so I'll put a link in the description so that you can see what the attacks was all about and all that. So from low to high, what's been the highlight of it all so far?
I don't know if there's been like one highlight. I mean, there's been sort of formally many sort of like good highlights that you can sort of point to as like, yes, that was a success that I was part of. I did some, when I was in the Labour Youth, I succeeded in getting my regional party to be against drilling for oil in this very beautiful area in the north of Norway. That was a really huge personal victory. And then, I mean, yeah, last year we had the success of the campaign that I was part of making, the State Educational Loan Fund for Development. So, I mean, that's of course a huge highlight, but I think what feels kind of like highlights for me are those sort of those moments where you're really, really close to everyone else fighting the same cause. So I think for me, especially inside, the strongest moments have definitely been sort of, I think, when I've visited partner countries and seen what our partners do and sort of get to see their realities and be sort of privileged enough to understand what I have. I think that's been really sort of strong moments, but also like demonstrations.
Those are always fun.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of what gets my heart pumping is kind of those moments when you're all sort of together for something, and that can be a late night meeting as well as, I mean, there are some late night meetings inside that I feel more strongly about than, for example, the press conference that we had about Lånekassa for development. So I think it's, yeah, it doesn't really have to be like the grand moments.
But it's all those victories where you feel like, okay, I have done something.
And especially the sort of the feeling of doing something together with someone else, I think is, I think that's pretty nice.
That's amazing. So let's talk about female participation. I know Norway is one of the top-ranked countries of where female leadership is a really big thing. So let's talk about that. How has it been fitting into that space as a young female leader?
I mean, in SAI and in civil society in Oslo, it's no problem. I mean, I don't think about my gender at all, and I don't feel like anyone else does that either. I mean, there it's kind of the opposite is the issue, that there are too few male leaders in civil society.
Yeah.
So I mean here and in my when I was in university, I didn't really feel that as an issue at all. I mean, when I was a regional president in the Labour Youth, I grew up in a more conservative part of Norway. I think it might have been more an issue. I don't know if it was the gender that was the issue or the youth part that was the issue, but I felt that I oftentimes didn't get the respect that I deserved and wasn't listened to, also because I proposed new things rather than just doing them.
Always coming up
the
with
same.
ideas.
Yeah, like, no, this is the way we do it here.
Yeah.
This is what we've always done. And that sort of didn't sit well with me always. So I felt sometimes there I was a bit disappointed. Yes. But no, I've had the privilege of not sort of having to think a lot about my gender, which I think is nice. And that's not, and I think that also is because I've been active at the time in a party that took that very seriously, but also because I've been active in civil society where this is sort of a prime concern. I don't think that all youth leaders in Norway have the same sort of experience of gender not being an issue. I think it's probably a much bigger issue, for example, in sports and in faith-based organizations and those kinds of things.
Okay, I want to talk about now the social aspect, being a youth leader, being active in civil society and all that. How has been your social aspect? Have you really had a social life to go out and party and all those things that it is perceived a young person should do? Like, live your life while you're young.
Yes, I think I have time for that. My issue is that I'm not really that good at those things. I mean, I do like an occasional party, I do like to be out with friends, but I'm not really, that's where I'm not good, for example, at taking initiative or hosting parties or going out. So sort of going to work, working for sort of an activist cause, that comes very natural to me. I like to do that. It happens on sort of autopilot. I can just keep on working. But actually sort of creating the social life and spending time and sort of maintaining that, that's a job, I think.
That's a whole nother job.
So yeah, and I think of course that would probably be easier if I worked less, sure. But yeah, no, I don't feel like I'm losing out a lot. And then also, of course, I've found a lot of my friends in activism. So we meet up also while being at work, but also sort of
We have fun with protesting.
yeah, for example.
I know from my background, being a youth leader is hard when you have to mix it with social life, because there's a way that you are supposed to act as a leader, especially being a female leader. So if I'm in a leadership position, either in a political party or in civil society, it is seen in my context. It is seen as I should not be out partying, or if I have a picnic with friends in a park and I post like pictures, they'll be like, why? She's supposed to be working. Why is there's that context? So does that happen in Norway as well?
Not really that much. I mean, I guess you could say it probably happens in sort of higher level of politics. If you have women who party a lot, that's probably going to be noticed more than men who party a lot, maybe. But I'm not entirely sure. But no, I've never felt that. I felt kind of the other way around, that I look to other youth leaders and I'm like, oh shit, they managed to have such a successful social life.
Yeah.
At the same time of doing such a job, oh my god, I have to improve my social life. So I feel it's a bit of, yeah, I don't feel like that's a big issue here.
Different world context.
Yeah, and then I mean, there's also something about, I don't think we have very strong sort of frames about what it is to be a leader. It's a lot. You have very many different leader types and different leadership styles. And I mean, I'm never expected to wear a blazer, for example. I mean, I like that. It makes me feel fancy. And when I go to the parliament, I like to wear a blazer because it sort of makes me feel like I'm supposed to be there.
Yeah.
But no one is expecting me to, and no one would think, oh, she's not a proper leader because she's wearing a flowery dress, for example. That's sort of, those frames are sort of not that locked, not that strict, which is nice.
Which is very nice, true. So I know you have some international exposure, because you had a position with UNICEF?
No, I'm what's called a youth delegate. So it's a Norwegian program where youth from different civil society organizations or youth organizations represent Norwegian youth in official Norwegian international delegations. So I was a youth delegate for education to UNESCO.
Oh,
Yes.
okay. That's wonderful. So being in that light and meeting other delegates from all over the world, what's the one takeaway that you came back with or learned that you feel youth leaders need to learn as well?
I think it's to relax, to have confidence that you actually know enough, and to not sort of try to change youth into sort of the frames of how adults work, but rather sort of be confident that you as youth have the expertise to have an opinion and to be vocal without sort of suiting up and using all those difficult words, because it's really, I feel, especially in sort of international advocacy work, I feel it's the youth that are often more clear and who have sort of, it's easier to understand what they actually mean, and it's easier to see their reasoning and their logic, and they're not wrong. I mean, their numbers are right, their reasoning is right, they understand the systems, but they manage to actually make other people understand as well. So I think it's rather maybe adults should strive to be as clear as youth. And I feel it's really sad sometimes when you see youth leaders trying to sort of fit into the sort of how the grown-up leaders are, especially in these international settings, because it's so important to actually show what the youth can do, and then you actually have to try to be. You can't just pretend to be 45.
That's amazing. So thank you so much. That's all the questions I had.
Yes.
It's been a really interesting and enlightening conversation.
Yeah, for me.
Yeah, and just from the way you've explained how things have been, how your experiences are, it's way different, I know, from most youth leaders from my context. Totally different scenarios. And it's actually good to actually be in a world where there's different contexts everywhere. We get so many learning opportunities from that. So I have a social question. I ask this question all the time. Are you single?
No, I'm not. I think that also links to sort of that whole thing about my social life. I've been in the same relationship for 6.5 years.
Wow.
And that sort of means that you always have a social life with you. And I think if I had been single, I'd been a lot better at sort of partying and having a social life. But no, I've had the same boyfriend for almost 7 years.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice. It's nice.
So thank you so much, Sunniva, for making this video with me.
Thank you.
And I hope you guys learned something as much as we enjoyed having this conversation.